Training camp has officially arrived, Dolphins fans. So that's what we're going to focus on. Day one of training camp on today's video for the Fins Up Network. So let's kick it off just the same way the Dolphins did with Mike McDaniel's media availability. I want to go through some of the highlights of the notes I have jotted down. So after he got done taking his little pre-conference selfie there with the media members, he went in right to the health of a guy like Byron Jones and said the goal, yes, the timetable is still for him to be on track to be ready for week one. But we're not going to rush him back. Obviously, we know he's starting camp on the PUP list. But the reason why this is important is because of the next thing that he talked about. And that's the opportunity that Noah Igbenogany has now to get some meaningful practice reps when a guy like Byron Jones is sidelined. Because in my opinion, the way I look at this defense, you got Xavier Howard and Byron Jones as those shut down corners. And they are, for my money, kind of what makes this defense run, gives them the flexibility to do these exotic blitz packages, to have the zero blitz, because you have these good man-to-man cornerbacks. But what this is doing, let's say one of those guys goes down to an injury at some point, someone's going to have to step up. And I'm a huge Nick Needham fan, but if Nick Needham's getting called into a different action, or if he stays in the slot, you're going to need another body. So whether that's Noah Igbenogany or Trill Williams, who we'll chat about here in a little bit, it's going to have to be one of those guys. So these reps that are coming in late July, well, you might look back at some point and think, I don't even remember July in the offseason. It's a byproduct that we just passed right on by. These reps are huge in case something like that were to go down. So big opportunity for Noah Igbenogany with a guy like Byron Jones sideline for right now. The next note we got down here is he referred to Tua Tagovailoa as a team leader. And I'm going to stop right there and say this shouldn't be newsworthy. It shouldn't be hard for a coach to say this about a player, but we've seen issues like this in the past. So that's why it makes your highlights, it makes your news today, just because it's that breath of fresh air that Mike McDaniel has given us ever since he's been brought on as the Dolphins head coach, that says, hey, I got faith in my guys. I'm going to utilize my guys to their strength, and I'm going to be upfront and honest about them. So breath of fresh air. And he went on to say, Tua, what he can improve on is he's so hard on himself. If you make a mistake, put it behind you. It's practice. You're going to make mistakes. That's what we're here to do. Make your mistakes, put them behind you, and then pay attention to the detail on the next play, making the most out of every single rep. So it was great to hear that as well. Went on to talk a little bit more about how a handful of veterans aren't going to be full go in training camp. You're going to see some guys with some limited reps. Guys like Teron Armstead, who did get some 11 on 11 work today. A guy like Alec Ingold, who did not get 11 on 11 work today. But there's a difference between a guy like Noah Igbenogany not getting all these reps and a guy like Teron Armstead not getting all these reps. Armstead's been doing it. He's a top 5 tackle in the league, Pro Bowler, All Pro, everything that's great. The biggest thing for him is status and health week one. Whereas Noah Igbenogany, or a player of that caliber, you need to get these practice reps. So very strategic how they're going to handle every single player in regards to reps throughout the offseason. A couple more things here on the availability before we get to some practice notes. McDaniel said that the players are going to pick the captains once the 53-man roster is finalized. Not huge news, in my opinion. I know some people are going to make it big news because Tua wasn't the captain last year. There are plenty of documented stories and reasons as to why that was the case last year, but we'll see how that plays out. But we're not going to have an answer on that for quite some time now. And the last thing he talked about, which I thought was kind of funny, kind of shows Mike McDaniel giving some more of his personality as well. Said he's completely fine with Tyreek Hill being the Tua Tagovailoa hype man, because we all know Tyreek has not been shy with the media, hyping up Tua, the whole most accurate passer in the entire NFL. This is my guy. This is the guy I chose for these reasons. And McDaniel said, you know what, Tyreek, if he believes it, that's why he's saying it. This is one of the biggest competitors I've seen, and it's been in limited time, granted. But he goes, this guy's giving it all on every single rep. He's going to demand that of other players as well. If he's willing to say that, there must be some truth to it. So, hey, go ahead, be the Tua hype man. Let's get into some practice notes, because the orange jersey update. And if you're not quite sure what that means, if you haven't been paying as much attention during the OTAs or the mini camps that have already happened, the orange jersey is given to the player who was deemed to be the top performer in the previous practice. So that honor today went to Alec Ingold, who didn't perform in today's 11, so I'm guessing he won't get back-to-backs, but Alec Ingold did sport the orange jersey today. Got a few practice notes as well from Barry Jackson. Tyreek Hill was his star of the day. Said he had 2 chunk yardage completions. The first was a 15-yard slant, which sounds like Tyreek probably could have housed it given the speed that he has. The second was a 30-yard sideline completion that the Dolphins social media team put out. So I'm going to throw that up on your screen as we speak. As you can see, they kind of slowed it down, then they sped it back up, and Tyreek makes the sideline catch and proceeds to celebrate because you know that he and Tua are having a good time at this point in time. But good to see that as well. Tua also had a 15-yard completion to Jaylen Waddle over the middle of the field, and Jackson said if today was any basically like a preview of what the season's going to look like, the middle of the field is where this team is going to operate a lot, which is a little bit different to last year. Not saying that they totally ignored it last year, but if you saw some of the areas where Tua struggled, it was if that first read wasn't there and he had to go back over the middle of the field. It didn't always go all that well. So getting these practice reps, once again, getting these reps with Tua, with Gesicki, with Waddle over the middle of the field, extremely important for these early parts of camp. Defensively, Jaylen Phillips, credited with 2 would-be sacks of Tua. Great for Phillips. Man, we are all on our edge, on the edge of our seats for this guy this year. I don't know a Dolphins fans that's not pumped about this. For him to be that next great edge rusher for this team, great for Phillips, not so great for the offensive line, but not quite sure who was on the offensive line for those plays. But regardless, Phillips with 2 would-be sacks. Couple more notes defensively. Noah Igbenogany, talked about him earlier, did jump the route from Tyreek Hill on a pass from Tua, got the pass breakup, and Trill Williams got the lone interception today on an interception from Teddy Bridgewater. So like we talked about earlier, who's going to step up if Byron Jones misses time or if one of those guys gets hurt later in the season? Igbenogany, Trill Williams, both made a couple of splash plays today, so we'll chalk that up as wins for those guys. It also sounded kind of hitting back on that offensive line. There was heavy pressure on 2 of Tua's first 4 dropbacks, but then the protection sort of improved, and we're not sure who was on the field for those either. And the media still cannot comment as to who's lining up where in what situations, but it still sounds like going from left tackle to right tackle, based on kind of like the hearsay of it all, that it's Teron Armstead, it's Liam Eichenberg, it's Connor Williams at center, and then on the right side, it's Robert Hunt, Austin Jackson. With the most competition, obviously not breaking news to any Dolphins fans here, being for the spots for Liam Eichenberg at left guard and Austin Jackson at right tackle. But wrapping up some of the play-by-plays here, sound like Waddle caught a couple of great passes from Tua. Like we said, that one over the middle, had an intermediate pass from Teddy Bridgewater. Bridgewater also had a 25-yard pass completion to Myles Gaskin, who took in an additional 20 yards. And then Travis Wingfield from the Drive Time podcast, he does a good job there for the Dolphins, had Jaylen Waddle with a potential 70-yard touchdown on it was more of a catch and run, a 10-yard catch, and taking it the extra 60 yards, if that's the math on there. That was from Skylar Thompson. He also on defensively had Christian Wilkins being in the backfield quite often. And this is something that we've grown used to with Christian Wilkins. It's the guy that has continued to improve year in and year out. And now the stats are kind of catching up to his level of production. But the stats don't always tell the story for a defensive tackle and a guy like Christian Wilkins, because he makes so many other guys around him better. Kind of similar to what this next highlight I'm going to tell you about is because Channing Tindall made a little bit of noise. Shot a gap, hit a running back behind the line of scrimmage. And that's great play recognition from a guy like Channing Tindall, and having the ability, because we know he's got that athleticism, that burst, to get back there and make the plays. But you got to have the guys up front that are creating those lanes and spaces. And that's what guys like Raekwon Davis and Zach Sealer and Christian Wilkins are doing. And then one quick final highlight, Javon Holland got his name called as well, got some attention with a pass breakup on an attempt to Jaylen Waddle. Some player media availability highlights. I didn't have much today that was super newsworthy. Once again, you get Tua saying he doesn't listen to the negative critics, and he loves the support that he gets from Tyreek. But it's gotten to the point where I don't understand why the local media, and I mean, I get why they do it because it's clickbait worthy and they want to get Tua to say something. But how many more times does this guy got to deny that he's not paying attention to what the media says and he's not paying attention to negative criticism? Like, at some point, we just got to get over that. So we should all mark a date on our calendar that it has to be over by this day. But hopefully, day one of training camp can be that damn day. And then the final thing is Xavier Howard basically coming to say that he expects Miami Dolphins players to get disrespected in the Madden rankings. They brought up him not being like a 90 plus overall or him not being a top 10 cornerback, which we know as Dolphins fans is just asinine. Doesn't make sense. Not quite sure what they're watching. Even if you're a stat watcher, you know and you love Xavier Howard, and he does even more than just intercept the ball. He just happens to be really good at that as well. But to not be a top 10 cornerback sucks. But like you said, all the Dolphins kind of get disrespected. So we'll leave it at that. And then just kind of a miscellaneous note to wrap this up that the Dolphins signed cornerback Tino Ellis. And I would be lying if I told you anything insightful about him because I haven't had a chance to do any homework on him. Guessing at this point is kind of a camp body with Byron Jones continuing to be on the PUP list. But that's kind of the recap for day one of Dolphins training camp. Like I said, hopefully to be doing these videos throughout training camp. So make sure you are subscribed if you are not already, and we can take it from there. But until next time, Dolphins fans, fins up.